Welcome back to the Cotton Mafia podcast. Me and Tyler are here with Alex Koehn with Dynamic Ag Services out of Paris, Texas, and Winters, Texas. They cover Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. And did I miss anything there?
You did not. Thanks for having me today.
All right, yeah. Glad to have you here. Tell us, how'd you get into ag where you're at today?
So I guess it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it quite brief. Come from a long history of farmers in my family. So I guess the best place to start, back in 1980, my grandparents moved to Northeast Texas from Western Kansas. And so that's kind of where my story would start. My dad grew up there. He was 15 at the time, grew up there in Northeast Texas and kind of established farm there. I grew up working with him, working alongside him. And 2012 was my first crop of my own. And had I guess you could say, a good time farming with Dad, and it worked out really well. And up until about 2016, that was all that I ever wanted to do, was farm. And so, yeah, it's since that time, as we have grown Dynamic Ag Services, there have been some changes and some things there. My personal farming has actually decreased in size.
But still farming.
Still farming. Yes, I am still farming. Mainly row crop, corn, soybeans, some wheat, and every once in a while play with a little bit of cotton.
Yeah, I've been pushing that to you every time I talk. What, some cotton? I'll come strip it for you.
Yeah.
So you started Dynamic Ag Service. That's basically precision planting that's basically what y'all cover, right?
The precision planting be our main line. Yes, we do service a lot of other smaller lines. Our focus is on planters. So if it fits on a planter, if it works on a planter, we probably have access to it in some way or another. But the focus is precision planting. That is correct.
Why precision planting? Like, I guess there probably was a handful of choices,
Yes.
but why'd you pick this one?
I guess it stems back to having used it on our own farm. So I remember, it's kind of a little funny story here, but been 2007, I believe it was. So my uncle, at the time, we didn't know anything about precision planting. So my uncle puts a couple of products, and we'll probably talk about them a little more later, but ESET meters from Precision Planting, and their Bullseye seed tubes. Just a couple little simple upgrades in his planter. And I remember Dad going over there to look at his planters like, is this stuff really all necessary? And is it worth it? And 2008 found us putting the same things on our planter after watching my uncle plant his corn. And that's where it kind of took off. And so here we are, I guess, going into 2016, we had been using it for a number of years, had great success. And at the time when we put it on in 2008, we had a dealer there. And that dealer didn't stay in business. They went out. It was a kind of a partnership that Precision Planting had in that time with Pioneer Seed Dealers. And Pioneer Seed Dealer had dropped the dealership. There was an opening. Several guys had some parts, and it was something that we looked at the time, just simply servicing these guys. And visiting with the regional manager at that time for Precision Planting, I really liked the way that their focus was on the farmer. It didn't feel like another company that was just out there to, would you say, get the farmer's money and just throw another product out there in the marketplace. The research they did and what they spent their time on and focused on set them head and shoulders above a lot of the competition. And so that's where we made that decision to move forward with it.
That's a long story for trying to say how you got in business, but I like it. Yeah, no, I've heard some long ones before. I like it though. That was pretty good. So yeah, no, and then you were formerly you started out as Triple K Ag, right?
That is correct. So it was Triple K, last name Koehn. That was my dad, my brother, and myself.
I don't see a problem with that. I don't know why you had to change your name.
Well, I don't either, really. But times change, and so do people. And yeah, Triple K Ag didn't have quite the same ring to it that it used to.
Yeah. What exactly happened? Were you just like, was there like a day you were just like, I don't know about this anymore?
Yeah. The first thing that really stood out was So I lived on the shop yard there for a short amount of time and had some guys bring out a dryer to my house, and they pull up and jump out of the truck. And the first thing they say is like, "Hey dude, we see that sign up there on the shop says Triple K Ag. What's up with this?" And I'm like, whoa, I hadn't even thought about this before. And I guess it just seemed like there was a lot of stories. That was about the same time there's a lot of companies changing their names, and we didn't want to be one of them. We did not want to be a number in that, but it started feeling like we were going to have to. The pressure was mounting, and yeah, eventually Dynamic Ag Services was born.
Yeah, you didn't want to become a statistic.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Moving around in Louisiana, sometimes we felt a little bit like a target on our back.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Alex is still with us today because of it. So, yeah, Tyler, you had a few questions about certain products that he offers.
I mean, there's tons of products if you were to look at the website and all that. But I mean, I've got a complete list. I mean, we could touch on a few of them. Really, maybe go a little more in depth on the ones that you feel like and I feel like are probably more beneficial out here than most everywhere. But I mean,
exactly.
To me, the ones that jump off the page are like Delta Force, Furrow Force, which you got to have the 2020 monitor to run them.
On the Delta Force. The Furrow Force, we do not.
Unless you're running the auto.
Unless we're running fully auto. That is correct.
Right.
So you touched on a very valid point. And that's something that we at Dynamic Ag Services really try to focus on. And that is from the standpoint of not every product fits every customer. We focus on providing a specialized experience for every customer. One grower may have entirely different soils, you take from East Texas to out here, the amounts of moisture, the soil types, everything are different. Products that work extremely well in Northeast Texas may not even come close out here. Right. So we want to provide a specialized experience to each person, each farmer. And I always say this, there are no bad OEM planter manufacturers out there. If they were, they wouldn't be in business. So, but they do a great job of providing an average. And we're here to focus.
And y'all's products are pretty much universal to pretty much any planter on the market today.
Yes, they are.
So that's another positive.
Yes. And so, back to product names you brought out. The first one that really stands out in my mind in this area, especially going into this year with the low moisture environment, is Furrow Force. That one does a great job of what a closing system is supposed to do.
And it's a two-stage.
It is a two-stage closing system. So our goal with that closing system is to retain moisture. That's the first thing I always mention in this area. That's one thing that we do well is retain moisture. The second thing is we eliminate sidewall compaction. We create a mellow path to the surface for the cotton, milo, corn, whatever the crop is that's emerging. And we eliminate air pockets. So we have the first stage wheels lifting, fracturing the sidewall, bringing the soil in, stitching it from the bottom up, which is vital. A lot of the competition closes straight from the sides. We don't get that bottom up removal of air pockets. Then we have the second stage coming behind that, resetting soil density to the appropriate density needed for that crop, which in this area is key to help retain that low moisture.
Because we're kind of known for baking around here, and that's what causes that.
That's what I was going to ask you. I've talked to a few people around here that might have been through you, but they've experimented with some Furrow Force.
Exactly.
And their whole thing was, which they may have not had it set right, may have been too much down pressure, not enough pressure. And they were talking about, well, it baked unlike our existing, so they didn't really fall off on it. But it's like you kind of got to work with it in multiple settings, figure out the right setting.
It's Furrow Force can be the key component of it can both be a blessing and a curse. And that is, it is the most adjustable closing system on the market. So you can adjust the camber of the wheels. You can adjust fore and aft. You can adjust the pressure. You can adjust the distance of the wheels. We can change from and I have never done this yet, but we can change from what we call kind of a hybrid wheel. It's I'd say a medium aggressive spike
Like the back, like the positive, like
the front stage wheel.
The front stages.
The front stage, yes.
Gotcha.
And we can change that out to a smooth. Now, like I said, I've never done that yet. I've never had a situation to do that. But I have seen in the situation you're talking about where we have good moisture at the time, it's a heavy soil, we tend to crumble a little bit on that first stage, bring it and create little balls of wet soil, then firm that back down and leave it too smooth. Now, the second stage wheel is ribbed to help prevent that, to keep, kind of fluff that back up a little bit.
And I think you just mentioned it a while ago, but one guy I was talking to he's running it. He's very, very happy with it, but he was talking about going in and actually adding some spacers on the back wheel to maybe get a little less compaction up top, but still firm it up where it's still, very mellow on top, and maybe get a little less compaction than what he was looking for.
Yes. And that's the thing. If there's one thing I would say to anybody running it, what I have seen, at least in Northeast Texas, where that's something that we fight quite a bit, is getting too much weight and causing compaction, baking, things like that, is sometimes less is more. Keep that weight down. Just let that front stage bring that soil together. Just put enough weight to remove air pockets and call it good.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things that I remember that I learned one day you were talking was when you have a planter box that's full of seed versus 2 hours later when it's almost empty, your weight's going to constantly change on how much down pressure you have on there, and y'all have a way to fix that, right?
Yes, we do. So we have a couple different products that address that. We have one that's planter wide air adjustment that we can put a lift bag on there together. Let's say you're running a Deere pneumatic system, currently. We can add a lift bag and actually take weight back off the row unit. Or the more known and more common product is Delta Force. And you alluded to that a minute ago. So Delta Force is a row-by-row hydraulic downforce control. And so we are utilizing load sensors that are measuring the amount of weight on the gauge wheel. So in the monitor, we tell it, and back to what you said earlier, Tyler, about the amount of weight and also the fact of needing a monitor. This is a product that requires a Precision Planning 2020 monitor. So we tell in the monitor how much weight we want on the ground. And in there, it's called margin, but I like the term firming force a whole lot better. Basically, firming force is the amount of weight needed to create the proper sidewall. We want a sidewall that stays open until the seed is laid in there and the closing wheels get there, but crumbles easily with the closing wheels. If that is too tight, the closing wheels cannot properly close it. If it's too heavy, closing wheels can't properly close it. Too tight. If it's too light, we get soil crumbling in around the seed, introducing dry dirt in that already possibly dry environment around the seed. So we are measuring that weight 200 times a second on that gauge wheel. 5 times a second, we are making an adjustment on that cylinder. We have a range from a 450-pound lift to a 600-pound down. We tell it we want, and a common number is 100 pounds of firming force. We tell it we want that. It's going to go anywhere within that range to achieve that goal.
On each row unit.
On each row unit.
So like guys that are spraying and planting straight across, say most guys around here spray at a completely different angle than the rows. When you plant across that, each one of those units is going to change as it goes across that sprayer track to get the most uniform down pressure.
That is correct. That is correct.
And even kind of working like a no-till situation where you got these heavy CP CS690s coming across it, and if you're just scooting over a little bit and not planting exactly, you could be sitting one row unit sitting in a stripper track and another one sitting in the most mellow soil in the world, and that will fix that problem.
That will. So a little story there. I had a customer, I guess it would have been 3 seasons ago. We set up a planter for him with that, and he had planted for about 2 days, and he sends me this map and says, I am sold on this product. And it was a picture. He was no-till, and he was splitting his rows every other year. So he had sprayed there 3 years prior. So 3 years later, he is planting on top of the sprayer track. It had been a little bit wet when he sprayed, but Delta Force was having to apply about 100 pounds more on those 2 rows that were setting in that sprayer track. Whereas before, he would have had a general setting. He would have had shallow planted seeds. Mm-hmm. Now it was getting those seeds to depth. He had a perfect emergence on cotton right through that.
And you'd had no idea from 3 years ago. Like you
couldn't see. You could not visibly see it looking at the soil, but it was detecting that it needed an extra 100 pounds to get that seed disc to depth.
That's wild. Also, Tyler, you were talking about.
So we touched on 2020. So, I mean, if a farmer's already going to have it in there with the Delta Force, is there anything else that you would recommend also having on 2020?
Yes, there is. Here's my thought on the 2020. Everything that Precision has developed has begun with a sensor. You cannot fix what you cannot measure. So if you have a 2020 monitor in the cab, we're already measuring weight on the gauge wheels. We're applying downforce. It depends a lot upon the grower, but there's about 2 other things that I recommend on those planters. The first one is, depending on the grower, but electric drive.
The V drive.
The V drive with the V set meter. That is correct.
I think I'd fall into that category. If you don't want to go hydraulic, but you have just an older style planter, a V drive would technically be the easiest route if you've already got everything else.
That is definitely right. So V drive gives us a number of capabilities. The first one is swath control. We have a little motor on each row. So we eliminate all chains, shafts, bearings, all the transmissions, all the drive headache that comes with a planter. That goes away. It's a little motor, mounts on each meter, and it's with the V-set meter, Precision Planning's meter. And so besides swath control, it also gives us turn compensation. So you have a grower that's planting contours. As we are rounding that contour, that terrace, whatever it is, let's say it's an 8-row planter, and some of these get pretty sharp towards the inside of them. It's going to slow down the inside, speed up the outside so you get the proper spacing all the way through. So you're maintaining proper population. It also, together with that meter, it is the most accurate meter for singulation, getting 1 seed when we call for 1 seed of any meter on the market. So typically, I see a lot of growers on cotton running definitely well over 99% accuracy. So I would say the average I see on a lot of growers in this area is missing, either getting a skip or a multiple about 5 times every 1,000 seeds, or about a 99.5% singulation.
When you're talking about cottonseed prices, I mean, doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you start adding up acre after acre after acre, it pretty much pays for itself once you crunch the numbers.
It adds up really quickly. You know, when you start thinking of the savings on overlap, you start thinking of the accuracy of the meter. So we do a lot of meter calibrations. We have a test stand. We can put the meters on, test them, and do a lot of that. And what I see kind of a good average on cotton, if we were to take a OEM John Deere meter right off a planter and put it on the meter stand, it ranges, but a good average is about 92% singulation. So it's going to be about 80 seeds in 1,000. So you have to tweak. It's relying upon you tweaking vacuum to set it correctly.
Right.
So if you're too high on vacuum, that's going to be all multiples. If you're too low, it's going to be all skips. And best you can hope for is set it right in the middle and get an equal amount of both. Your population may be right, but you may have a skip here and a multiple here.
You don't want to see my red planter. It's worse than that.
Well, there's a fix.
Yeah, there's a fix.
So, and there's also, for growers who are looking for an economical option, say they have hydraulic drive, or they, I don't know, there's a few guys running prescriptions, things like that. That's another capability of V-Drive. But let's say they have the hydraulic drive, they're running prescriptions, they're happy with it. They just want a little bit more accuracy on the seeding side. Precision offers a drop-in replacement for any John Deere meter newer than 1992, and that's called the E-Set. That's just a insert we put right into the existing John Deere cast housing, and put that, it's a raised plate. So instead of dropping the seed off to the side and sliding it down the seed tube, which creates seed tube bounce and causes spacing issues, we drop it directly over the center of the tube, as well as we put what we call a singulator in there. It's 5 lobes. Each one gets more aggressive to the seed. So as we turn our vacuum up, right now a lot of guys are probably running 7-8 inches of vacuum. We'll turn that up to more like 18 inches of vacuum. Make sure we get 1 seed on every cell. And yes, your vacuum fan will make noises you've never heard it make, but it's good for it, I promise.
That's like the case planter. Nobody around here runs red, and I'll have it set at 10 pounds, and that thing will be humming. And people drive by and they're like, "Dude, is there something wrong with your planter?" Like they're used to deer planters around here. And
exactly. I kick mine on 7 pounds. I mean, whatever. And you walk back there and you have to Are you on?
Yeah. There's no question if they're on at 18 inches of vacuum.
Yeah, no.
But what we do is we make sure there's 1 seed on every cell, and with that 1 seed on each cell, then we use that singulator to knock off any multiple seeds. And so we end up with 1 seed every time we call for 1 seed. So that's where the acronym ESET comes from. Every seed, every time.
Okay. Yeah. So you helped me out a lot on my planter, because remember when last year, I messed around and it was 3 days before we were gonna plant, and I was sitting there going, "Hey man, this system that I ordered 10 years ago is John Blue system or something. Don't work. Can you come fix it?" And you showed up the next day with everything I needed. I don't know how you did that.
It was a little bit of luck and a little bit of skill, I guess you could say, both combined. I had most of the stuff, and everything that I didn't have was readily available, and I was able to get it in immediately.
Yeah, that thing's a Frankenstein. I forgot what kind of stacker bar with case planters and welded parts and John Deere hydraulic drives and seeds. 2020 seed sense monitor. It's put together now.
Yeah, it's put together, and that was a fun one to do. Mainly just because I guess I enjoy challenges. And when you called and said, hey, I need to be running, and this thing's broke down, it was kind of fun to get out there and do it that quick.
Yeah, it's 4 different planters put together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But it was one that I enjoyed.
Gotcha. Well, I was actually on website earlier, just scrolling around, kind of refreshing, but I came across something. So we're about to get pretty heavy into the in-furrow fertilizer.
Okay.
And I was looking at y'all's row flow, which I don't know if something you deal with, Ashley, but it has to have the 2020 monitor, right? But the way I was interpreting it, you get row by row flow, but it's also going to give you the variability. So if it's still flowing, but it's putting out less than what it should be, you may not get a notification, but there could be something up with it. But what I was going with that, so with the row flow and with the furrow force, is there a certain product to put out the in-furrow fertilizer you would recommend, or with the Keaton seed firmer, that it would work a little better than maybe your more conventional just tubes underneath your seed tube, like a lot of guys are running?
Exactly. So you actually touched on a couple different things there. So I'll kind of back up and go over a few things. So you mentioned row flow. So we have what's called row flow liquid, and basically the row flow itself is used to control the overall flow, and then we can use flow sense to monitor the flow. So our flow sense would tell us as far as what rows are putting out what amount, and it'll give us row by row variability on the liquid flow. It'll give us row by row. If something's plugged up, it give us notifications, things like that. We can actually see gallons per acre for each row. And then we have our own liquid delivery system. It's a precision planting pump stack. It's a hydraulic diaphragm pump. It is a super smooth, super simple application method for a pump. And then we have all the in-furrow placement as well. So you mentioned the Keaton seed firmer. So, and I actually have one here. This version that we have here in front of us is what we call the low stick Keaton. And a lot of guys, when they hear Keaton seed firmer, turn and run the other way. They have a bad rap, especially in this area with sticky soils. They would turn into turkey leg in a hurry. They were nylon infused, and they were just porous enough that that sticky soil would start building up and eventually start dragging seed. I have maybe 3 customers still running those. I have transitioned everybody to the new low stick Keaton. It is more expensive, but it lasts about 3 times as long, and we get more pressure on the seed. So back to mentioning low moisture, things like that, we're getting enough pressure to firm that seed down to the bottom of the trench. So we have plenty of pictures in history already where guys have been planting in low moisture conditions, and we'll throw 1 Keaton seed firmer on their planter, like, hey, go give this a try, and we'll end up with 1 row out of the ground.
That might not be good for this year.
Yeah, exactly. you would hate for your crop insurance agent to see that, right?
Yeah, it's a 16-row planter. Why'd you get 1 row up everywhere? Like, well, I tried on 1 row. Demoed the product, and it worked too well.
Yeah, exactly. But that also has a application point on it. So we can put a liquid tube in it with a little emitter here at the end. We can either do a straight stream or splitter. So if you're putting something you don't want directly on the seed, we want to go ahead and split that and shoot it against the sidewall. Either place, we can put that in the end and apply that liquid out to the Keaton firmer.
All right. Also, say I got a brand new planter, which I do. I have a new one to me.
Exactly.
It's only been running a couple telephone poles, so this guy that I bought it from, he's known to hit things. But that's a different story. If I bought a planter, you'll come out and you'll take a look at it, and you'll be like, hey, this is what you need to add on here to make this thing better, correct?
That is correct. So we offer a couple different versions and different levels of planter inspections and, of course, free estimates, quotes, and advice. So what I would recommend in a situation like this would be what we call our advanced planter inspection. So myself or one of my techs would come out, look the planter over, and we would look at a number of different things on the planter. And the first thing being planter maintenance items, just wear on the actual row units themselves. Opening discs, parallel arm bushings, seed tube guards, things like that. And maybe we can touch on more of that later. But beyond that, we give you this list that would say, okay, here are the common wear items that we see need to be replaced for this planter to perform optimally. Because no matter how much technology we put on a planter, we can spend $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a row on technology. No, there's very few guys ever spend that, but it is possible to spend that amount. But it can take one little wear part on a planter to bring that whole planter to its knees. So the most important thing is planter maintenance. So the first thing we give you is an inspection sheet saying these are the items that need to be replaced. Then we would take it and start looking at, okay, what are your goals within your operation? What kind of conditions will you be planning in? What are you hoping for this planter to achieve? And then we start working back and try to build out a specific plan that fits your individual needs as far as products that would generate the fastest return on investment. My goal within our company is to never sell a product to a customer that I am not confident will have at least a 2-year return on investment. If at all possible, I try to get a 1 year.
That'll pay off. Also, so say you say, hey, you need this, this, and this. Y'all offer financing, correct?
We do. We have a couple different financing options, actually. So the one that we use the most is Echo Finance, but we have several others as well. So we do offer financing on that.
And it's competitive pricing, correct?
Yes. Depends a lot upon the products that we're doing and things like that. But from time to time, we do offer buy-down rates as well. And it's very competitive to begin with, but a lot of times we can make it extremely competitive.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Sometimes you can just, even if you're not going to use y'all, you can go to your banker and be like, hey, these guys offer me 2.5%. You better match it, or I'm going to go over here, and you just put your banker on the spot.
Exactly. And we have a lot of guys that do just that.
Yeah. Have there been any products here that we haven't touched on?
Clean Sweep.
Yes, that is a good one, Tyler. Clean Sweep is one that I think is a really good one for this area, especially for a grower who may be running in some residue. So Clean Sweep is an air cylinder that mounts into your existing Clean Sweep compatible row cleaner, which will be a floating row cleaner, many brands, Yetter, Martin. There's several others that aren't quite so common that are compatible as well. But a lot of the floating row cleaners on the market today are compatible with Clean Sweep. So it's a controller in the cab where we can go ahead and take control of those cylinders and adjust that from the cab. And paired with the floating row cleaner, it helps us to engage the ground all the time and get uniform cleaning performance.
Gotcha. And I think I've been in a cab where one was running. It's literally, I mean, you can be running, you don't like it, and it's literally a twist knob. You can say less, you can say more.
Exactly.
I mean, you can change it on the fly, get out if you want to get out. But really, if you're from the cab, you can tell exactly what you're liking. There's no getting out and hand cranking anymore,
busting knuckles and crawling underneath the planter and all those good things. It's all done from the cab, and it's super simple, super easy. And the thing about it, a lot of guys in Northeast Texas run it just because when they're coming up to a mud hole and they don't want to plow in the mud, they pick them up. They can pick them up in about, it takes, depend on the air supply, but generally maybe 10 seconds or so to go from full lower to full lift.
I'm so far behind. Like, have you seen my 1200 planter with the little pins
with
you got to pull? You can't even adjust it.
We can fix it. They sell floating row cleaners and Clean Sweep.
Yeah, so that thing is no longer a problem of mine. It's there's a 2019 John Deere 16 row coming up here.
Congratulations.
I feel like a kid in a candy shop.
I believe it.
Yeah. And so that's another point. So, I mean, even though guys are buying brand new planters and saying, let's just go ahead and update them, one of the great things with Precision is you can literally probably go to a farm sale, buy a low-end used planter, maybe in decent shape, and not go spend a ton of money at Deere, Case, wherever you're at, and you can pretty much update it with some pretty basic Precision stuff and have a top dollar planter for, I mean, not even half the, less than half the cost.
So I don't have the numbers exact, but I do know I had a customer that when he was looking at retrofitting his planter and he was looking at going the full route. So he was putting electric drive, hydraulic downforce on his planter, and he had a couple other products he was doing as well. But he tried to quote out a new planter that was very comparable to it from an OEM manufacturer. And we come in about a quarter of the cost. And so same way, and I mean, I build new planters as well. We don't just fix planters.
Because y'all have complete row units.
Yeah, yes. I was gonna touch on that here in a minute. Like, you can just show up with a bar and be like, hey, I want the best planter in the market. Make it happen.
That is exactly right. I have multiple customers who have done the exact thing. There are many planter bar manufacturers on the market today. All we require is a bar, and we sell about 3 different options for bars as well. That we've worked with manufacturers that we've visited with and kind of try to find the best ones, and so we offer that as well. But there again. So Precision Planting did a study, and I don't have the numbers right here in front of me, so I may be 1% or 2% off. But as I recall, when if a grower would go and buy a new planter on the market today, if his existing bar and row units are in good shape, all he needs to update is the technology. Approximately 73% of the cost that he just spent on that new planter is for something he already had. If his bar is good, but his row units are in poor condition, beyond rebuilding, and he needs to replace row units, then he spent about 27% of what he already had.
So just throwing money away go buy a brand new planter, and then you're just like, oh, I don't need this. I'm going to add this, and then you're just wasting money.
So, I mean, you could basically you trade in, let's say you took and traded in a 2018 model for a 2022 model, and the only thing in your row units and bar were in good condition. You just needed, say your 2018 model was hydraulic drive and pneumatic downforce, but you wanted electric drive,
speed tubes,
and speed tubes and hydraulic downforce. Exactly. And so what you would spend when you went to Deere and bought that new planter with Deere's Exact Emerge package versus what you could retrofit that other planter for, you basically took and just respent 73% of your money. Well, it could have went into another, into the products. And instead you just, the only cost would have been the 27%.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you really trust your products. I mean, you sent me a video one time of one of y'all's row units, and you were going like 65 down a county road just with 1,000 pounds of weight on it. And
that wasn't me. I didn't take that video. I got to give that little disclaimer. But that was a manufacturer taking a video of that row unit. And yes, they had 600 pounds of suitcase weight strapped on the top of it to replicate Delta Force at maximum setting.
I know for a fact you can't do that with. I mean, I used to run a green planter when I was a farm manager, and I tore up a few row units, and just there's no way you could do that with green or red.
Exactly. A lot of it has to do with the parallel arms and the way that the weight and the structure of the row unit is distributing the weight across the row unit. That makes a big difference on how that row unit will hold up.
Gotcha. Well, you know, we touched on a lot of products, but if you were to say, let's just call it a West Texas dryland farmer's planter, what would be, let's just say, the two products? I know we've already covered them, but if you were to go up to somebody and just say, hey, if you anything, do these two products and you're going to see your money returned pretty quick.
That's a very good and simple question to answer. If there's two products that I recommend to any West Texas dryland cotton farmer, number one, Keaton Seed Firmer. Number two, the ESET meter. Those are two very, very economical products with today's prices. With the ESET meter with a cotton plate and a Keaton Seed Firmer, he won't spend above about $250, $260 a row if he installs it himself on those products. And those are things, number one, like I mentioned, you'll take that singulation, getting one seed when we call for one seed, you will take that from about a 92% to 99% with the ESET meter. So you're going to save on seed costs. And, you know, there's a lot of things when we're talking dry land, we're talking the dry that we have right now. You know, there's a good chance we may be putting seed in the ground with absolutely no moisture. At that point, it's imperative to keep our costs down, our seed costs down. There's no reason to be throwing out extra seeds due to a poor meter.
That's saying you already have swath control on your planter.
That's exactly right. ESET will drop right into your existing deer housing, and that will take that skips and multiples that we fight now. Too much vacuum, you've got multiples. Too low a vacuum, you've got skips. We're going to take that, turn that vacuum up, get one seed when we call for one seed. I'll throw out a population here. You want 28,000 population. As long as your transmission's set there, that's what we're going to get. Yes. Is that population.
That's not like swath control, though.
That is not swath control. That's strictly metering the seed properly.
So you're saying if somebody already has swath control and all that, like you would recommend this before?
I mean, this is just anything. This is just, I mean, if somebody was wanting to try something, these two
that's
products,
a cheap option.
They would see. They would see a return.
I would think swath control, but then you're going to start spending real money.
Yeah, your cost jumps up a lot on swath control. And you know what I found a lot in this area, and this isn't nearly everybody, but we do see a lot of growers here that are, I guess you'd say, a little scared of technology. They want something simple. These two products are not going to, we're not going to have to put a single wire on the planter. We're not going to have to put a single sensor on the planter. Everything that you have right now, other than maybe we'll put a 30-inch vac gauge instead of a 15-inch vac gauge on, will work with these products. We'll drop them in. You can go to the field.
You're going to be blowing seals out of vacuum motors.
Actually, I tell guys, if your seal blows when you turn it up to 18 inches of vacuum, it was probably right ready to go before. I have not seen any just common failures in my area running 18 inches of vac. As long as the motor is rebuilt properly, then we're good to go. Mm-hmm. So that's been actually a low cost upgrade there that's really worked well for a lot of people. And I could take you to a couple different growers right in this area. I think y'all actually know both of them, but there was one, I won't call him out here, but he put on ESETs and went to the field, and he had two transmissions on a 16-row planter. So he was able to set because our ESET cotton plate's a 60 cell. So he had to set his drive transmissions just slightly different for it. So he put ESETs on half the planter just to see if it'll work. And I would have to ask him again just to verify. But if I recall correctly, there was something to the effect like 30% more seed put out on the side with the deer meters versus the ESET meters.
Oh, it's always. I mean, you set your planter at one thing, it always seems to be 2,000 to 3,000 seed higher, regardless of what you do.
And you know, on that, and while we're on those stories, another grower, and this involved the electric drive with the VSET meter. So he had the swath control. And just to kind of note the accuracy of those meters, he went out in the field and he had it figured out. He had planted 1,000 acres or so array. He knew just how things were coming out. And another operator that was there with him he said, hey, you're going to need to put in a certain number of bags for this field, get enough seed on this field. And he said, no, he said, I won't need that. He said, here's what I'm going to need. And this other one's like, no, he said, as long as we've been farming this, it has taken this number of bags to plant this field. He said, I'll have the bags loaded up. He said, call me when you get done or run out of seed down there so you don't have to drive all the way back out. And 5 o'clock that evening, he drives up to the shop. Another guy's like, you were supposed to call me so you didn't have to drive all the way back up here. He's like, come look at this. And he opens a box and there's just a little pile on the bottom of each hopper. So he's like, it works.
It worked.
Yeah. It's good to see when actual results like that, because sometimes guys will just buy stuff and not even try it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Maybe it works, maybe it don't. I'll just spend money.
And you know, that's what, as I mentioned earlier, at Dynamic Ag Services, that's what we've tried to implement, is to make sure that what we put on works as much as possible. And like I said, as much as possible, we can't do everything, but our motto is we will not, I guess I'll put it this way, we will not sell a product we would not be comfortable running in our own operation under the same circumstances.
Well, that's good to hear. Tyler, you got everything you need to say here?
I mean, yeah. I was just say these guys, depending on what, or if you wanted to spend a little, like we were talking about, the seed firmers, the ESET, you wanted to go a little fancier, get some of the better technology. It really just comes down to the end of the day, what most people battle with the most, and I think where people would see the biggest difference is just emergence.
Yes.
And so, the biggest thing with precision planting is regardless of what product, even if you are doing one or many, emergence at the end of the day is key.
Emergence is key.
Because if you get it up, that's the first step. So if you've got more confidence in your planter doing what it's supposed to do, and you know you're going to get consistent, good emergence, I feel like that right there, regardless of money, is just peace of mind.
Exactly. Yes, emergence is key in any crop. To date, of all the crops Precision has tested, and the list is practically endless, but of every crop they've tested, they have yet to find one that did not respond yield-wise to proper emergence. Some more than others, but every crop it is important to get it to emerge evenly.
Yeah, I've heard even a double in cotton. It's not going to do anything. They're just going to fight each other the whole time and not grow any fruit.
Yes. So, and we get a lot of guys will tell us, well, cotton flexes very well. And it does. Cotton flexes a lot better than corn or some of your other crops. But when we get a double, we probably aren't going to get much more than we would with having one seed there. So why plant an extra seed with as high as cottonseed is? Why put that extra seed in the ground when it's not going to return us a thing? We could put one seed there and we may get 120% of what we would, but it still isn't what that seed could produce if it was planted perfectly and how it should be.
The right spacings.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep. So we've been asking the same question to everybody that comes on, especially if you're involved in ag or cotton in general, but you're more just involved in ag. What is your biggest issue that you're seeing in today's world?
This is something that I'm sure everybody is dealing with, the same thing that I'm seeing and am noting here. But what really stands out to me that we are facing is just product availability. I've been telling guys, I have a lot of guys coming to me, back in East Texas, planters are rolling right now. We're trying to get corn in the ground. And normally planters start going about the first to second week in March there. And I was having guys calling me the last week in February with this whole list of planter parts that they needed. I cannot stress it enough. We need to be looking at combine, and out here probably not too long till we need to start looking at stripper parts instead of planters. I mean, planters should be already taken care of at this point because it is becoming nigh impossible to get parts. And not just precision planting, it's the industry over. I went to order a row unit from Deere. Guy had 2 broken row units on a Deere planter. Deere could not even get me row unit shanks. They had to come from the factory. I waited 3 weeks on a row unit shank. So it's not getting any better.
It's not just you. It's everybody.
It's everybody, and I feel like we're going to feel it for, next few years.
Yes,
hopefully it's less, but
this is something that won't fix overnight. This is something we'll be dealing with repercussions for years.
Yeah, I ordered a brand new truck. It took like 11 months to get or something.
Yeah, so. Exactly.
All right. So how does somebody get a hold of you?
So there's a couple different ways. So we have, and the way that I guess I would prefer is we have our support hotline. It's our option for sales team, option for our service team, our parts. It's all there. And that's 903-206-2108. Also, look us up on Facebook, Planter Masters, as well as just info@dynamicagservices.com. Just send us an email. Just info@dynamicagservices.com.
And he'll be there in about an hour, is what it seems like every time I've called him.
Well, don't set their expectations too high, Landon, okay?
Yeah. So, and again, you service what? Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, pretty much.
Yes, that's my primary area of operations. Yes, sir.
You get around a lot.
Yeah. My goal is, and I have guys call me from all over, but and this is not just reflected in we as a company, but also Precision Planting as a company is service driven. So I never want to sell something that I cannot service. So to sell something and then not be able to deliver service down the road is more damaging than not having the product. So if you call me and I say, well, here's a dealer over here that's a lot closer, it's because I'm looking out for you down the road and want to make sure you're taken care of there.
Yeah, you want to make sure the parts available and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate having you on. Thanks for driving out here such a late time.
Yeah, it's been good.
Yep. Thanks for having us on.
Yep.
Thanks, Alex.
Yep. Thank y'all.